Hey, it's Mazzy, and these are the top 10 jazz records I grab, I pull, I listen to. This is a thread that's rocking the nation and the world of records that you go to. Not necessarily your favorites, but records that you pull and you play regularly. So I thought I'd go into my jazz collection. I think I have about 1,500 jazz records or so. And some of these have been really special to me. Some are obvious choices, and maybe some are not quite so obvious. But I pulled 11 because there's always that extra bonus. And I actually have something at the very end just because of the artist that I have to listen to that artist every once in a while, every pretty much every week or two at least. But here are 10 albums, not in any particular order, jazz albums that I go to, and I don't know what jazz album to play, what mood I'm in. Because as you know, like any other genre, there's different moods. There's something that's in your face out there, or avant-garde, or fusion, or there's the mellow sounds, intimate sounds. But here's one that was amongst my first jazz records. Now, this is the second album I got of this outfit, and this is Chick Corea's Light as a Feather. This was on Polygram. Their first one, The Return to Forever, with on ECM with the seagull flying was my first one, and I fell in love with that album, and I was so excited. This one came out, I think, in '73. That one I got in 1972 as a German import, and I just love the combination of Chick Corea's electric piano playing, Stanley Clarke on bass, but what really kicked it off for me, I fell in love with Flora Purim's voice, the Brazilian vocalist, with her husband Ayrton on percussion. And not everyone is into jazz vocals, but to me, the Brazilian kind of crossover sound of early days of fusion. What I like about these first couple Return to Forever records are not that electric rock and roll fusion like Return to Forever would become, Weather Report, John McLaughlin, Mahavishnu Orchestra. Sometimes it got too much. Now, I didn't like that at the time. I can listen to fusion in doses when I'm in the mood. I don't see this as that type of fusion. It's more sort of Brazilian jazz fusion. And this is such a beautiful album. In fact, the songs with lyrics, the first one, You're Everything, Chick Corea, and Neville Potter, who wrote the lyrics, it's sung beautifully by Flora Purim. But just the groove on these records, the Brazilian sound, it's really sexy music. Light as a Feather, of course, written by Stanley Clarke with lyrics by Flora Purim. There's a song, Captain Marvel, with Chick Corea. But the one I think I got into the most was another Chick Corea Neville Potter song, 5 Miles High. And the way Flora sings that, it's just nothing but just magnificent. And this record I pull. When I don't know, I just want something that feel good. I want to move. I want to groove. It makes you want to move. It's like the Brazilian dances, Light as a Feather. Beautiful record on Polydor. I highly recommend it. If you're into, typical hard bop or bebop, or it's not that at all, but it's a magnificent album and originally released. This is my original 1973 copy on Polydor Records, an American copy. Another record that you should jump on because it just was repressed, and this is a tone poet, but you should get it anyways. Chet Baker Sings. I love his voice. I like his soothing voice. Of course, like many other people, when I first heard him sing, I thought it was a woman. He's got this really kind of late night, early morning groove to him. His piano playing, his trumpet playing is sublime. And this is a wonderful album. Of course, My Funny Valentine is probably the key track that people were attracted to this album. At least I was when I heard it many years ago. But it's certainly not the best track on here. This record touches you. And this is the one to get, the Tone Poet. Just repress, order it now, because it'll disappear again for another year or two if you don't get it. They have those beautiful session photo gate folds. The sound of this recording is great, but the music, his just sexy trumpet playing. It's very intimate, and he just almost whispers his voice. He's, you could argue he's very much in that vein, like Julie London. I mean, Julie London could almost be in this category. I could have pulled that, although it's pop, but it's got a jazz sensibility on some of her albums. that Bobby Troup produced with Herb Ellis on guitar, and just very minimal. But this is a wonderful record, and I play it a lot. This record to me always was a favorite of mine since the 1970s as well. This is Herbie Hancock's first solo record, taking off, of course, the great Herbie Hancock, played with Herbie, played with Miles Davis and Tony Williams and Wayne Shorter and Ron Carter with that great second quintet. But this is the one sampled by so many hip-hop groups in the 1990s, especially with Watermelon Man, covered by, was it Monto Santa Maria? Various artists covered that and sampled that song. Three Bags Full Empty Pockets, The Maze Drifting Alone and Alone. His first two albums, also Maiden Voyage is another one, but I tend to go for this one. I like the sound of those trumpets with Freddie Hubbard on there and Dexter Gordon on tenor sax. This is a wonderful, this just makes me feel good too. It's a great instrumental record, very accessible for people who are new to jazz. And it's one of those things, even if you don't know jazz, haven't listened to jazz, you've heard some of the music on this album. And that's, to me, a testament of, the crossover of jazz. People think, I'm not into jazz, but it has crossed over into so many other areas, from, pop music to TV themes to movie themes. Another record that had a hit single, and I think for a long time, I don't know if in the history of it, was Blue Note Records' biggest selling record. Very commercial in so many ways, a fantastic record, and that's Lee Morgan, great Lee Morgan trumpet player, Sidewinder. Sidewinder was a radio hit, and it was repressed many times. This is with Lee Morgan, Joe Henderson on tenor, Barry Harris on piano, Bob Crenshaw bass, Billy Higgins, but ends up with a great song, Hocus Pocus. I just think this is a perfect record. Again, a very accessible record, not hard to digest at all, and it's just one of the best Blue Note records ever. Love that cover too and everything. This one, it's funny how a lot of these that I'm playing are records that have been sampled and mostly into the 90s and beyond, but this is one I knew before it became even more popular, because in the 1990s on Blue Note, the group Us3, and this is Us3, is that the name of the group? But anyway, the album's called Us3, Horace Parlin. This is a great trio of Horace Parlin on piano, George Tucker, and Al Harwood. He's one of my favorite jazz piano players, and he's someone, even during the 70s when I was selling records, I don't think I ever heard of him or paid attention or ever really noticed a Horace Parlin record. I don't remember this being issued in the 70s and in print in the stores I worked in, but this obviously is an iconic Reed Miles cover, amazing artwork, and of course the hip-hop band, takes from this graphic and runs with it with some Blue Note sampling. Horace Parlin was really interesting because he has a really interesting piano style, and he lost, I think, the ability to use his last two fingers on his right hand, I think. So he has a unique style he learned as he relearned piano, and it just adds it. I am a huge Horace Parlin fan. In fact, there's a recent Blue Note Classics Horace Parlin record. Check that out. It's really, really good, and it has this Turrentine brothers, Stanley Turrentine, and his brother Tommy Turrentine, trumpet and saxophone. And I was thinking when I was playing that just yesterday, and I was thinking of this like brotherly harmonies, like the Louvin brothers and Everly brothers, and I'm wondering if brothers playing instruments have that sort of symbiotic thing going, because the way they play on that Horace Parlin record is really cool. And so check that one out. But this is my favorite of his records. Of course, it's the most iconic record, Us3, and cool stuff. Again, this is a Music Matters jazz version with this really iconic cover. So check it out. I think there's other versions of it. Now, an artist that when I see this record, I buy him, because this record is cheap for the most part. I buy it and give it out to people. I think I have a stereo and a mono copy, and this is Moe Allison Sings. Now, unlike Chet Baker Sings, This guy is groovy ass. This guy is cool. This guy is like jiving, hipster. This is like beatnik music. He's got this jive thing like I'm the seventh son of the outside to the blind. And Pete Townsend of The Who was a big fan. In fact, they covered songs that he covered. They covered Eyesight to the Blind, of course, on Tommy. They used that on Tommy. Parchment Farm on here. In fact, I think it's on the, I don't know if it's on the original Live at Leeds by The Who, but on the elongated version at least. Might be on both. He mentions Moe Allison. This is Moe Allison tune, or he made it famous. He's just got this cool voice. His piano playing is so cool. Some of his albums are total instrumental. I actually prefer his vocals, and even if you're not into jazz vocals, forget it's a jazz album. This guy is a hipster, overdrive hipster, and he sounds so cool. But this is the one. This is on Prestige Records. This is like, what is it, late 50s, I guess, 1960? 1963. But pick this album up. It is cheap. It sounds great. Maybe there are reissues, but you can find this for $10, $15 tops, I think. But again, I pick it up, so if I have a copy and you're visiting me, I'll hand it to you. If you're visiting me and I have a copy in stock, what a great album. I just put this on, again, when I don't know what to play, I pull this out of my jazz thing and play it because it's so good. Now, this next record, it's funny, lately I've had people comment, maybe because I got so many views on this first records I play the most video. Everyone has. It's like, I got 22,000 views on that in a week, which is, never had that before. It hit a nerve, it hit an algorithm, and everyone, it's all the rage. It's all the rage on YouTube. You must know that. But I get some people seeking out or looking at my older videos, and they'll say, that's not psychedelic, that's this, that's that. You know, people want to pigeonhole genres too much. Like if grunge, or if garage, is not quite all psychedelic, that's not psychedelic. Captain Beefheart's not psychedelic. He can be bluesy. He can be a lot of things. I mean, that's the gist. Some may say this is not a jazz album, but it's absolutely a jazz album. Like the Chick Corea with Flora Purim, the Brazilian sound. This is not your mother's Sergio Mendes in Brazil 66 of The Fool on the Hill, that really kind of poppy, Sunday night ABC TV show stuff. This is Sergio Mendes, Brazil 77. I have showcased this record in the past. Find an original A&M. It sounds amazing. Someone should do an audiophile version, because I don't know, the later A&Ms aren't as good, I think, but this is the A&M you want to get on pretty much on any A&M record. If it came out on the gold label, it's so good. Early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. Now, what's interesting about this is a different kind of Sergio Mendes. It's very Brazilian, very percussive. It's eurythmic. It's got some vocals on it, but it's just, this is a sexy, moving Brazilian album. And I just think this is a perfect record. And it's almost like people like to say, well, what's a good album that sounds good in my stereo, even if it's not audiophile or classified as audiophile? This is a kick-ass, great-sounding record. Percussive, got great bass, great vocals, just great instrumentation. Turn this puppy up and blast it. It'll make you smile. It's a joyous record, and it's a really, really good record. It's not light, pop shit. It's just a great album, and it's called Primal Roots. And it's just that. It's exactly that. The roots of Brazilian music, of very percussive. I said that percussive 16 times describing this record, but that's what it is. Fantastic record. Pick it up. I don't expect this to be an expensive record, but it's a wonderful, beautiful record. This is probably the most out there record, and it's literally called Out There. Eric Dolphy. I love, first of all, this is a record, is this a craft, or is this Analog Productions? This sounds amazing. This, to me, is one of my favorite. This shows that for $40, you can do a great audiophile record. You don't need a massive price or packaging on it. And a beautiful cover, very Salvador Dali-like, and it's not Dali. I forgot the artist who did this. I used to know his name. But this is a little out there as literally, as I just said, Eric Dolphy is this alto sax player that did some more on the avant-garde side of jazz, not as accessible. But I think this is really good sound. I think that this is the most accessible out there record maybe in my collection. Ron Carter plays cello on it, which is great. I love when he plays the bow on his stand-up or playing the cello. It just is really beautiful. Roy Haynes on drums and George Duvier on bass. Just has a magnificent sound. And I play this a lot because it's not only that it sounds good. I don't, again, sometimes you do pull something because you want the great experience. You want your ear and your brain, your soul to feel the music. This is one of those records. And I highly recommend it if you want something a little more adventurous. I would suggest this is a good stepping stone. Some Eric Dolphy is out there for some people. Obviously, he's a favorite of a lot of artists like Ornette Coleman and that kind of area. And a lot of people like that or want to push the boundaries and don't want the safe stuff. I go both ways. I like very commercial stuff, and I'm not afraid to admit that. And I like stuff like this. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous record. Another one that is very, it's an obvious choice, but you can't deny how great this record is. Bill Evans Trio, Sunday at the Village Vanguard, featuring Scott LaFaro. Trio, almost like Cocktail in the way it plays and the way you hear, the clinking of glasses sometimes, a little bit of the audience, but I don't think it gets in the way. I think it actually amplifies the beauty of this record and how personal it is and how intimate this place is. How many people are watching him? Are there 100 people there, 150? Probably not. But this is recorded in 1961, and Scott LaFaro died, I think, right after this session or soon after this session. But this is a gorgeous album. This is an iconic album by Bill Evans. I could have picked several Bill Evans records, but when I don't know, depending on the mood you're in, obviously, but when I don't know, I want what kind of piano. I was thinking about there's Solo Monk, Thelonious Monk. I like the solo stuff quite a bit, the solo piano stuff. I like the, the Monk album, Solo in San Francisco. There's a mood to that. There's so many other albums. I was looking through my collection, but as I go back, I pull this album. And this is one, of course. I don't have to say a lot, but there's a lot of people I think that watch it don't know jazz. But this is an easy, accessible record, and it's a beautiful record. I didn't pull a Miles Davis album just to pull a Miles Davis album. And I don't have a John Coltrane record here, even though I almost pulled one. But I didn't, because it's not one I naturally go to play. It's not a first pull when I don't know what I want. When I know I want to hear Coltrane, there's a lot of different directions to go with Coltrane. But with Miles Davis, now this is my favorite Miles Davis album, and this is the one I pull quite a bit, but again, depending on mood, and that's In a Silent Way. This is just prior to Bitches Brew, so it has that really crossover from the second quintet, adding people like Dave Holland on bass, Joe Zawinul, of course, who would start Weather Report, John McLaughlin on here. So it has that really transition period. This is really a cool ass record. It's just a lot of stuff going on. It's not as wild and disjointed. As much as I love Bitches Brew, it could be considered disjointed. I think this has somewhat of a vision. It's only 2 tracks really in its side, so it's a lot of jamming and stuff, but I just think this is a spectacular album. Of course, I love Kinda Blue, but I don't reach for it, maybe because I've heard it so much. And it's a wonderful record. You can't discount how great a record that is, or any of the, the walking, smelling, tailing, working, jerking, all those records in a different way from Prestige. But this is the one, and this is one I do play a lot. This is a Mobile Fidelity. This is my favorite version of it. I've heard originals. I've heard 70s pressings. I think this MoFi tops them all. But again, just get the music in any way you can. Great record. The whole theme of this series is go-to albums, albums you just play a lot. And of course, there's no way of technically, specifically knowing how many times you played an album unless you're doing digital. An album I play a lot is definitely this Something Else. And this is Something Else, Cannonball Adderley. This is my all-time favorite jazz album. And this, to me, is a perfect jazz album. Hard bop, easily accessible, and it's a driving album at times. It does have Cannonball Adderley, Miles Davis, Hank Jones, Sam Jones, and Art Blakey. This was 1958. Rudy Van Gelder engineered it. What's interesting about this record, this was recorded when Cannonball was a member of Miles Davis's first great quintet. And Miles returned the favor by playing on this album. So it was in that time period. Some think it may be a Miles-led album, but it really doesn't matter. Miles just does some great soloing on this album, obviously, as done Cannonball Adderley. The rhythm section of Art, Sam, and Hank just really drive this record. And it's a smoking record at times of hard bop. There is opens up with Autumn Leaves, a beautiful rendition of that Miles would, I believe, record a few months later. Was it on Milestones, maybe? One of his records with Cannonball Adderley as well. So this is a perfect jazz album, and this is a go-to album in my collection. I suggest, any of these records I'm showing today, if you're new to jazz, this wouldn't be a bad selection of music to start with in your collection. You get a little variety here. Obviously, there's some things I haven't included in some directions in jazz that aren't here. But Something Else by Cannonball Adderley, to me, is an essential album. And Cannonball Adderley would also be on Kinda Blue. So it's in a way, this might be a sister album to Kinda Blue. Something Else, Cannonball Adderley on Blue Note Records. As the bonus, an artist, my favorite jazz artist of all time is this guy, Charlie Parker. Just what 4 years ago, we celebrated his 100th birthday, centennial of Charlie Parker. I play this a lot. I mean, box sets, some people say, I don't ever pull them out, but the Dial, Savoy stuff, I grab one of the records, this is 10 records maybe, 10 LPs, and I put it on. But I have a lot of Charlie Parker, Verve, Charlie Parker with strings. And whenever in the mood and I don't know what I want, I pull the Charlie Parker record. Bebop stuff, one of the originators of bebop, and a great musician. It's not that great audiophile stuff that some people want, and they got spoiled by the Tone Poets and these other labels. But it's amazing music, and it's smoking music. Him and with Dizzy Gillespie and Lionel Hampton and Errol Gardner's on here, Max Roach, Dizzy Gillespie, of course, Bud Powell, John Lewis, just amazing stuff. Anyway, you gotta have, people hate when I say you gotta have something, but I think if you want some jazz, you gotta have some, you have to have at least one Charlie Parker record. So that's it. I pull these records. These are my go-to jazz records when I don't know what else to pull. My top jazz records when I don't know what to pull. So thanks for watching. Maybe other people want to get into jazz. Maybe this will start another algorithm shakeup in the vinyl community and beyond. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Take care. Bye. Mazzy loves you. Almost forgot that.